Trinidad and Tobago politician Anel Roberts calls out Caricom leaders Roosevelt Skerrit, Ralph Gonsalves, and the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. In a recent interview, he called out those leaders and he said Caricom was poisoned. Is this another example of Trinidad and Tobago, the possibility of Trinidad and Tobago exiting Caricom? Let's talk about it. So in a recent interview on a YouTube show called The Observer, Anel Roberts went off on Caricom leader, as I said, Roosevelt Skerrit, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, and Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados. And what this, since the UNC administration came into office, we're seeing like a crack within Caricom. I know that this Caricom was never stable, but since this administration came in, we're seeing a big divide in Caricom, and we have been questioning in recent times, even with the vote on the Caribbean and Latin America as a zone of peace, and we saw that Trinidad stood alone by themselves while the other members of Caricom voted for the Caribbean and Latin America to remain as a zone of peace. So this is another crack that we're seeing in the system. And one of the things that I've been observing since, I would say last year, I did a video last year talking about it when the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, she went to some celebration. I think it was Roosevelt Skerrit. And I did a video at the time and I was questioning if it was appropriate for different leaders within Caricom to go and endorse different leaders across Caricom, because that could be seen as dividing Caricom. That could be like a wedge that would prevent Caricom from being effective. And I still hold that point, because we saw that with the Prime Minister, as I said, of Barbados, Mia Mottley, when she went, and people were saying that it wasn't a campaign rally, so it was appropriate for the Prime Minister to be there. But I thought that, knowing well that she supported Roosevelt Skerrit, that it just did not look good. And then we saw the same thing with the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, when he went to Jamaica in the midst of an election to campaign for the People's National Party. So it's not really surprising to me that Mr. Roberts would call out Mia Mottley, Ralph Gonsalves, and Roosevelt Skerrit. The fact that they align politically, like their political ideology is very similar, and those are the ones that would pretty much support each other politically across the lines of the Caribbean. And as I said, I am still of the belief that it's not appropriate, because it makes it more difficult for Caricom to unite. Because now we are seeing what Mr. Roberts is accusing the PNM government of, is that the PNM government, pretty much, when you look at the PNM government, their political ideology, they would align with a Mia Mottley, they would align with a Roosevelt Skerrit and a Ralph Gonsalves. So what is happening now? You see that Mr. Roberts now is pretty much accusing the PNM government of the type of relationship that they would have with these leaders in Caricom, and how it could keep like a opposition at the time, the UNC government at bay, that these leaders across Caricom would support the PNM and they would get favor in return. So a lot of accusation, especially for Ralph Gonsalves and his family, about favor that they might have received from the PNM government in terms of buying properties in Trinidad and Tobago. So this is what they had to say. This is what Mr. Roberts had to say in that interview on the YouTube show, The Observer.
Now, time and time again, we hear when people make comments about, well, one political side would have done this, so it justifies why the other should do that and what have you. Why did you feel it necessary to bring this story about the St. Vincent Prime Minister to the forefront, into the public domain?
Because the Old Boys Club And the blight and the poison that is the PNM has not only poisoned every independent institution in Trinidad and Tobago, it has gone up the islands, and even Caricom has been poisoned with the Balizé juice, with the PNM. When you listen to Roosevelt Skerrit, the Prime Minister of Dominica, coming to Trinidad and Tobago in August of 2023 in the heat of an election local government, and telling our citizens that Keith Rowley is a nice guy and he's nicer than we know. We didn't ask you that. It's inappropriate for you to get involved in our elections. When he was asked by a member of the media in Trinidad and Tobago about the Brent Thomas kidnapping, he said it was UNC opposition mischief. Then we have Mia Amor-Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, failing to tell us simply who contacted her government to ask for permission for a Caricom jet carrying Trinidad and Tobago police officers to land on her sovereign tarmac in her sovereign nation and in her airport, to disembark and to go to a hotel and kidnap Brent Thomas without paperwork, without extradition, without natural justice, without charges. Mia Motley's government, and who Rowley went to see her immediately. Why does she tell us what Rowley told her? What deal they made? Why is she not just telling us the truth? We want to know which minister of the PNM asked her government for permission. It's a simple question, a simple answer, but she refuses to answer because the Balizé juice infects Caricom. And then there's Ralph Gonsalves. Our Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar told people, told the population that she will do everything in her power to keep us safe, to get the crime rate down. She's bringing stand your ground legislation. She's putting police in schools to stop school violence. She's increasing the equipment, the effectiveness of the police. She dissected the ministry to make it more efficient with 2 ministers. She's giving the police and the DPP the resources that are necessary. And she's supporting the USA in the fight against narco-terrorism, drug runners, human traffickers, cocaine traffickers, and narco traffickers. Because Trinidad and Tobago, we don't manufacture guns, we don't manufacture bullets, but every little bad boy who fell through the cracks in school and so on, has the ability and access to a gun. Kamala Persad-Bissessar says that the blood must stop flowing in our streets and the narco-terrorists have to be stopped. So she supports the USA in their fight against the drug cartels. Then here comes the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, attacking our beloved Prime Minister in a vile, ridiculous, inappropriate, undiplomatic manner, saying that she is misguided. She is brighter than he can ever be. That she is causing, encouraging war and all sorts of nonsense. That she is not statesman-like or stateswoman-like. He is fast and out of place. And then when I realized that he was saying this with a kind of passion, I always thought and knew that he loved this PNM because he was friends with Patrick Manning. When you go to the airport in St. Vincent, there are 3 pictures in the main lobby. There's one of Hugo Chavez, there's one of Fidel Castro, and there's one of Patrick Manning. But that's his friendship is all right. But don't jump and attack and get involved in our domestic politics and disrespect our beloved Prime Minister. You're fast and out of place. So that's where it came. And when you see the connection and the passion he defends the PNM with, you know that it is because he's received so many millions, so much value in houses from the HDC, from the PNM, jumping the queue over citizens, talking about his wife is a citizen, his wife is a citizen, great, nobody ever said no. We are talking about preference, about nepotism, about the ability to get things unfairly. How 3 out of 3 you so successful when people are waiting, saving, waiting and praying for the opportunity to buy a house from the HDC. And then his daughter, who's just a student, gets the opportunity to live in a gated community in a pristine, expensive area by paying $2,700 for 10 years for a place that is valued at 1.3, but the real value is $2.1 million. And for 10 years, she does not have to face the interest of a mortgage as normal citizens would have to. She gets the value to increase, and in 2030, she will pay a paltry $1.2 million and get something worth $3 million. That is not on. That is nepotism. That is corruption. That is preferential treatment. And that's what we stand against in the UNC under Kamala Prasad Bisesa.
So that was Mr. Roberts, and he had a lot to say, especially when it came on to Ralph Gonsalves and his family about the possible favor that they could receive in Trinidad and Tobago in purchasing homes that they have there. And Ralph Gonsalves, like this has been like a rough couple of months for Ralph, because Ralph Gonsalves have been going back and forth with the people of Trinidad and Tobago since he came out with that statement about monopoly money when they were going back and forth in terms of trading among St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Trinidad and Tobago. But one thing I would agree with Mr. Roberts, I believe that in Caricom, the leaders across the Caribbean, I don't think it's appropriate, even though they might align, their political ideology might be the same in certain islands. I don't think it's appropriate for them to go across a different island and to endorse another political leader, because I believe that will kind of put division, make it more difficult for Caricom to work together if that is the case. Because if, like a Ralph Gonsalves or a Mia Motley would be supporting, say, a Stuart Young in the PNM, like you would understand when the Prime Minister, when the Kamala Prasad Bisesa, why she would not want to deal with, like, say, a Ralph Gonsalves the same way, because she's going to think that, like, okay, you're campaigning, you're staying in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you're endorsing the PNM government. So I just don't believe it is good, and it could be seen as political interference. And what I'm hoping that in this election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that is coming up, that the Trinidad government don't get involved, because we see now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines with Friday, the opposition leader, they pretty much have the same tagline as the UNC government. You know, yellow is the goal. That is the same tagline that the UNC government in Trinidad and Tobago, that is their tagline, and that is what I see Friday of the NDP in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is using. And I've seen people coming out already saying that he is being supported by the UNC government, by Trinidad and Tobago, and they are backing him. And as I said, I just don't believe it is appropriate, because it's only going to make things more difficult for Caricom. And that is why when the hurricane hit Jamaica, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, she moved rapidly and she sent relief to Jamaica. Like, I was not surprised, because they align politically, their political ideology. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, and the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, they align politically. But when Barbados, now the Prime Minister of Barbados, sent aid to Jamaica rapidly, like, I thought that was a good gesture, because the Prime Minister of Barbados she would be like a student of Michael Manley, which was like the opposition party in Jamaica, so they don't align politically. But what this is showing is that, yes, Caricom, I don't know if it is ever possible for Caricom to really be united, because now we see political forces across the different islands, across the Caribbean, is making it even more difficult for the Caribbean to align. But I hope that this outburst by Mr. Roberts, I hope that this is not an indication that Trinidad and Tobago is not going to work hard to make sure that Trinidad stay as a part of Caricom, because Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, Guyana, we're all important to Caricom. And if one link is missing out of the chain, it is going to make it even more difficult for Caricom to succeed. The same way it fell apart with the West Indies when Jamaica pulled out and Trinidad pulled out. It is going to be difficult for Caricom to succeed without Trinidad and Tobago. So I hope this is not an indication that that could happen. So guys, sound off in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this one. Do you think Minister Roberts in Trinidad and Tobago had a point calling out Ralph Gonsalves, calling out Roosevelt Skerrit, and the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, in his rant that he did on this talk show? Let me know in the comment section. And I'm going to link the full episode in the comment section so you can go and watch everything that he had to say on that program. And guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And remember, peace. I'm out.